Good morning, everyone. I'm Joanna Mendelson. I'm the Senior Vice President for Community Engagement at Jewish Federation Los Angeles. As the voting period for this year's 2025 World Zionist Congress is underway, Jewish Federation Los Angeles is intensifying our efforts to encourage participation across the Los Angeles Jewish community. While neither Jewish Federation nor JFNA endorses any specific slate in this election, we strongly believe in the power and the importance of using your voice. Our goal today is to raise awareness about the critical role that WZO plays and encourage everyone to take a vote because this will determine the allocation of over $1 billion to support Israel and the Jewish people. The WZO, one of the most influential institutions in the Jewish world, holds a pivotal election every 5 years, with approximately 1/3 of its leadership determined by American Jewry. The ongoing election, which runs through May 4th, 2025, gives American Jews the opportunity to vote for delegates to the 39th World Zionist Congress, often referred to as the Parliament of the Jewish People. This year's election features more than 20 slates representing a wide spectrum of political perspectives, religious denominations, and cultural traditions. As voting continues, today's expert panelists will explore the significance of this international body and discuss how your vote amplifies your voice in Israel and plays a really crucial role in shaping global Jewish communities and Israel's future. So throughout the presentation, we invite you to submit questions in the webinar Q&A function. And to begin, it is my honor to introduce today's moderator, Becky Caspi, Director General for the Israel Office and Senior Vice President of Israel and Overseas for Jewish Federations of North America. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Joanna. Good morning, everyone. And whether you live in Los Angeles or in Israel, you are more likely aware of democratic processes and structures today than you've been for a very long time, given everything that's been going on. And as Joanna shared, we are now in the midst of important elections again as a global Jewish community. So I'm thrilled that we are joined by two experts on today's call who will help educate us about the mechanics and the significance of the elections to the World Zionist Congress, which are currently underway. Herb Bloch has been executive director of the American Zionist movement since March 2017. A friend and colleague, Herb came to AZM from a long career in Jewish communal life and public service. In February 2021, the Jewish Agency's Board of Governors elected Yaron Shavit to the role of Deputy Chairman of the Executive of the Jewish Agency. Yaron is an accomplished attorney who specializes in commercial litigation, insurance law, professional liability, computer law, and copyright. Yaron is also a friend and colleague who, in addition to his professional work, is a colonel in the IDF Reserves who continues to perform active reserve duty as part of his social commitment and volunteer work. Yaron, let me start with you. What is the World Zionist Congress, and why should people care about its elections? How does the Congress impact the global Jewish community and the state of Israel?
So thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you, Becky, for the very kind introduction. Well, Jana said that the Parliament of the Jewish People, and unfortunately, there are a few organizations out there that call themselves the Parliament of the Jewish People. But to be honest, since the days of Herzl in Basel in 1897, who established the Zionist movement, the arena of the Zionist Congress is the only democratic arena of the political arm of the Jewish people at large. The Zionist Congress is basically made of 1/3 votes that come from Israel. We as Israelis voted in our democratic elections last time, so our Knesset result of the election will have their bearing on the picture of 1/3 of the mandates of the Zionist Congress. Another third is the elections that are now being held and her bloc is running them on behalf of the AZM. This is the vote of the U.S. Jewish population that votes online. And the other third is the rest of the world, depending on different countries, different number of mandates according to their Jewish population and their Zionist activity. That being said, the Congress is representing the entire Jewish people. On every visit that I travel around, I leave behind me the Declaration of Independence. I actually have an example here with me that has from it extract that in English point the fact that when my parents were there at the Declaration of Independence, our mothers and fathers who created the State of Israel realized that this is the homeland of the entire Jewish people. It's not the country of the Israelis. And if you want to impact by living outside of Israel on what is happening in Israel and outside of Israel, the only way to do that in a democratic way is through the elections to the WZO Congress. It has been said and mentioned before that there's a $1 billion at stake, more or less, as budgets. The WZO, through the Zionist Congress, is the mothership of three huge organizations by themselves. One of them is the Israeli JNF KKL, it's called Kakal. The other one is KH, the Keren HaYesod, who is the fundraising arm. And the third one is the Jewish Agency, which I was elected to be the deputy chair of. And the Jewish Agency is 50% owned by the WZO. So the election will also impact the Jewish Agency, at least 50% of what goes on there. So I hope it wasn't a too long answer to a short question.
Wasn't too long, but I do think that you took the opportunity to share how complex the situation is and the fact that we're actually experiencing, by design, asynchronous elections. So the elections in Israel have already happened, and I'm now going to turn to Herb Block and ask, what is the American Zionist movement's role in managing the elections for US-based delegates? And would you also take a moment and explain why is it important for American Jews to participate in these elections?
Thank you, Becky, and the LA Federation and Yaron for the my colleagues. So the American Zionist Movement, AZM, is the Zionist Federation in the United States. As Yaron mentioned, the Zionist movement, there have been Zionist, it was established by Herzl, the first Congress in 1897. This is the 39th that Congress that will be meeting to be held this October. In the over the years, the WZO as a world body and a grassroots-based organization, with representing international Jewish communities, encouraged the creation of Zionist federations in different countries. The American Federation has had various different names. Now the American Zionist Movement basically has been around since 1939, when American Zionists came together to work under a broad tent to push for the founding of the state. We have 46 national Jewish Zionist organizations, very diverse, of all ideological, religious, denominational, political streams, youth movements, groups that are very political, apolitical, etc. So we're a very big tent convening body of Zionists in America that works with our partners in the WZO and the national institutions and others, such as the federations, to bring Zionists together to work on our common goals in support of Israel and the Zionist movement. So in that role, the AZM, as the Zionist Federation in America, runs and oversees the election for the Zionist Congress. We are essentially the board of elections in the United States for this election. The AZM itself is nonpartisan in this role, in that we encourage we administer the voting through an election company, but we encourage American Jews to participate and oversee the process. Just by way of short background, there are 22 different slates that are running. The voting opened on March 10th and concludes on May 4th over a roughly 8-week period. We're about 3 weeks into the voting period, and we've already had over 100,000 people who have voted, which is more than 2.5 times the turnout that was at this same point in the last elections 5 years ago, and 650% higher than 10 years ago. So there's a lot of interest in this. For those in the LA area, there are, of the 22 slates, I think 21 of them have candidates in the greater LA area. Over 200 candidates altogether among the different slates running from the LA, and even more from the Southern California area more broadly. On the website behind me and zionistelection.org, you can see all the slates. It's also on the AZM website. You can read all about all the different parties. One of the reasons that, obviously there will be people who get more votes than others, and people vote for a slate. It's like a parliamentary election, a little more familiar to those in Israel, not as common in America where you vote for a candidate. But here you're voting for a party slate, and we can discuss that more. But we believe this election is an opportunity for American Jews to show their commitment to the Zionist movement. That's important when Israel and Zionism is under attack. We've already seen record numbers of slates and people wanting to run, wanting to participate, wanting to vote. They're literally standing up for Zionism, and they're signing the Jerusalem program, the platform of the Zionist movement, and declaring, I am a Zionist. And lastly, for this question, when people go to the Zionist Congress, when the American delegates go, if the delegation from the United States, which, as Yaron mentioned, is about a third of those from around the world, are backed up by a significant number of votes, by hundreds of thousands of American Jewish votes, that shows the strength of the diaspora. It shows that diaspora Jews, whatever their differences may be on the nuances of policies, are all united in wanting to have an American Jewish voice, a diaspora Jewish voice expressed in the World Zionist Congress, and that the Zionist movement is supposed to be the bridge between Israel and Jews around the world, and we want to have as strong a voice as possible.
Thank you. So I don't know if anyone else is taking notes, but there are a lot of numbers being thrown around: 22 slates, 200 candidates. I think you said just from the LA area alone. But one very large number really sticks out in my mind, and that's the $1 billion that you referred to, Yaron, earlier. So can you sort of take us inside the most recent Congress and share what some of the major accomplishments or challenges, by the way, after the elections happen, the World Zionist Congress will convene. So it's that I'm asking you about. The last time the Congress convened, what were some of the major accomplishments or challenges? And can you help us look behind the scenes and understand a little about how funding and policy decisions are made?
Okay, so I'll try again and make it understandable to people who generally are used to a completely very different political system. The political system of the Zionist Congress is a relative system whereby these different slates, when they come to the Congress, they get together and they form different small coalition groups in order to have their voice extended, and to have a relative representation in at the end of the day, at the executive board of this WZO, and furthermore of JNF Kakal, whereby during the entire term of 5 years, they'll be sitting, making decisions, allocating money, deciding where they go, deciding on priorities. For instance, latest priorities are us, especially those who are more interested about what's happening to World Jewry, are pushing strongly to make sure that there's more money going to fighting anti-Semitism in the States and in the rest of the world. Sometimes the Israelis are less knowledgeable about what goes on in the rest of the world. So this is a discussion that takes place around the table of the places where these decisions take place. The Congress itself also brings up a few resolutions that will be voted on at the end of the Congress. There's a voting process, and for instance, last Congress I just before this call, make sure that I go over it. So last Congress, we were around the issues of the legislative revolution slash reform, as you prefer to call it, what happened during these days in Israel. So there were many decisions that were put on that were on this issue. For instance, making stronger the meaning of the Declaration of Independence. The WZO reminds the government of Israel that we are committed to a democratic and liberal country. That is one of the resolutions that passed on. One of the another resolution that was passed through, and it was unfortunately there were debates around it. We're strengthening the voice of LGBTQ communities around the world, and it passed. So by getting forces together of different slates that have a same or a similar agenda, we get our agenda pushed forward, and that is how the mechanism works.
Thank you, Yaron. So Herb, take us into today. Those were some of the really interesting examples of what happened last time the Congress convened. What are key issues that you see as being at stake in this election cycle?
So the 22 slates that are running have very diverse platforms and agendas across political lines, from far right to the far left, across religious denominations, and slates that are, some of whom are several in denominations. There are slates from different aspects of the community, for example, Russian-speaking community, Israeli-American groups that are new in this election that haven't participated before. So there's a very diverse agenda that the slates have. I think that and I'll put in the chat some links where people can see, the slate platforms on our website. You can read, every slate has a 2-page document with their platform, their ideology, and the list of their candidates. We also have a document that's sort of at a glance, their summaries. So if you don't want to read 46 pages, you can see a summary of them.
But Herb, how much editing do you do to how they present their positions, et cetera?
Sorry, how much editing?
Yeah.
So we don't edit. We gave every slate 2 pages, where 1 page for their platform, 1 page for their list of candidates as they want to present it, and another shorter sort of for those who went, the crib sheet guide like you had when you went to college, but in their own words, that the slates wrote in a paragraph or so what they believe in, so that someone could read it. We don't translate that; it's there as they describe it. There are some common themes. Obviously, depending on people's perspectives, they have different views on religious services, religious pluralism, denominational issues that are of concern to different movements, whether Orthodox, conservative, reform, and their agenda according to their beliefs. While we're one united Zionist movement, as it were. There's unity but not uniformity, and there are many different ways to be a Zionist. Just parenthetically, I think the diversity of our 22 slates across really every aspect of the American Jewish community shows the prevalence and dominance of Zionism in the American Jewish life, to the point when people are attacking Zionism, they're really attacking the Jewish community. And, we realize that anti-Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism. But there are many issues that I think slates are united on, in terms of addressing anti-Semitism, focusing on college campuses, increasing Jewish community security. I think one of the things that American slates all agree on is the need for funding of services to reach the Jewish population in the diaspora, in our case, in the United States. Many slates, whether they're right or left or different religious streams, focusing on college campuses and the need for increased resources, and hoping that the Zionist movement globally will address those needs in America. Slates have their own unique points that they're each trying to raise for their own ideological agenda. I don't really want to characterize them, but people will see them. But there are some overarching things that that they agree on, and the need for a focus on helping American Jewry and strengthening the Zionist and Israel connection of American Jews.
Thank you for that. Yaron, let me circle back to you and ask how the different ideological factions within the Congress shape decision-making. And in your opinion, is there a similar political polarization as we've seen in the Knesset? What's it like deep inside the World Zionist Congress?
Unfortunately, it is as polarized as what we are seeing in Israel. Unfortunately, I have to say here as an Israeli, and I'm ashamed of that, Israel, in this case, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, the Torah that is going out of Zion, in this case, in the political arena, is a Torah of polarization in many different aspects. Some of them are on general aspects, like in the rest of the Western democracy. But in our case, as Jews, as everything gets more complicated, we always have the religious issue also as something that paralyzes us. Last Congress was the first Congress that the ultra-Orthodox Haredi slate decided to run for the Congress. And this time they liked it, like they like it in the Knesset, and they decided to increase their voice simply by encouraging their people to vote, going on the agenda that they want the liberal voices in the Jewish world to actually be much less influential within the Zionist Congress. So yes, part of this election is on these major issues of what is the voice that will be coming out of the general arena of the Parliament of the Jewish People, the WZO Zionist Congress. And we have to be, again, very open and honest here. We're in an LA federation. As in many cases in other places, I'm quite sure that actually the actual result of these elections will be defined by the people who do not show up, not by those who show up. So it's crucial, and that's what we are trying to do, is to increase people, to encourage them to actually go in and vote. I'm, in this case, not speaking for a specific slate, this or another one. It's important that you as Jewry, as at large, will actually voice its voice through casting its vote.
Thank you, Yaron. I just want to also remind folks, we've gotten some really interesting questions through the Q&A function, and I have a few more questions that I'll be posing to Herb and to Yaron, but then we do have time to try and answer some of your queries. So feel free to use the Q&A function, please. So Herb, this is a tough one, but I know you can do it. Can you please break down the logistics? How does somebody register to vote? How do they vote? And what should they expect that experience to be?
Right, so it's actually not that tough, but hopefully it's a simple process. So people can go online, the QR code here, and I know the Federation will share it, as well as the website zionistelection.org, very simple, on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop, and register and vote. There's a $5 registration fee that covers the cost of running the election. It also helps enable that we're making sure that real people are voting, and the payment process system ensures that an individual is registering and paying themselves. It continues in the tradition of the Zionist shekel of the older days of Herzl. So there's a registration fee. You go on, you register, you pay $5, Apple Pay, Google Pay, credit card, debit card, lots of easy ways to do it. It should just take a couple of minutes. You'll get a PIN code, just like when you log into your bank, a code, and make sure it's you. And then you cast your ballot for one of the 22 slates. You have a chance to review it and confirm your choice. Click submit, and then you voted. It should just take a couple of minutes. For those who are not as proficient online or on their phone, there's a paper ballot that can be downloaded, or many organizations and synagogues are sharing those as well, and someone can mail that in to vote. So it's a relatively simple process. There is a help desk or an email if someone's having a problem. Over 100,000 people, I think by now, 105,000 as of this morning, have registered and voted and done it successfully. So that's really a record turnout, as I mentioned at this point. And, you know, that is the best and easiest way to do it is online for people to vote.
And what do you say for people who are feeling a little skeptical about the value of their vote in this process? What's your response?
So I say, look, you know, democracy is important. We know elections have consequences. People see that in America, in Israel. It's important to stand up and express your participation in support of Israel, in the Zionist movement. You know, the fee is probably less than most people's cups of coffee or snack. And, you know, there are important issues that the Zionist Congress deals with, as mentioned, altogether, and you know, overseeing a process that allocates over $1 billion for important Jewish needs. But this is also, this election is a referendum, as it were, of where American Jews stand on important issues. So if you want your voice to be heard, you should participate and vote and not be a bystander. As Yaron mentioned, there'll be many people who are not sure or sit it out. And then if you don't participate, you're letting someone else have a voice. And if you care and want to participate, this is an easy and small way to do that.
Yes, and that's a great lead into a question I wanted to ask you, Yaron. How do you respond when someone says, I don't really think that the World Zionist Congress has a direct impact on my life? Is there really anything at stake for the people who are now engaging in the elections in the United States?
So first, I would like to mention the fact that as an Israeli, these are critical elections simply to have our friends across the ocean show up to support us. We are going under difficult times as a country, but also within our society. And we need the support of the people who share the same values to stand behind us here on the ground and say, we support you, we're standing behind you, and we want you to keep on doing and representing the values that we actually are also share with you across the pond. So this is one very important message that I have to carry, and I do carry around in the rest of the world when people ask me, why is it important for me to vote? It's important for me as an Israeli to understand that many of our friends in the US actually voted, and it's important for me representing a relevant slate in the entire arena to get support from the people who actually voted for the slate that actually will be sharing the same values that I'm sharing. Beside that, yes, I can show it simply by showing the different issues that went around. For instance, there was an issue within Kakal JNF, and it was an issue between right and left from the Israeli side of the map regarding the Kakal JNF purchasing land across the Green Line. And the large coalition of parties from the left side in Israel, together with strengthening voices that came from the slates of outside of Israel, managed to have a majority to block that. So that is a simple a demonstration of how actually it works on the ground. Your voice matters.
Thank you, Yaron. And in a way, you opened the door to allow me to ask the first question from our audience. which you spoke now a lot about the values and wanting to, and the importance of understanding the connection and the shared values. But what role does the World Zionist Congress play to prevent platforms with agendas that could potentially be harmful to Israel from participating in the elections?
That is actually quite simple. The Zionist constitution says very clearly that slates and people who do not stand behind the state of Israel, who do not sign and are committed to the Jerusalem platform, as Herb mentioned it, which is the basic platform of the Zionist movement, saying basically that we believe in the Jews are entitled to their sovereignty in the land of Israel, with Jerusalem at its capital. And as I said, the values of the Declaration of Independence are now, according to an amendment that we took last time, are a part of that. If you don't stand behind all of this, you'll be disqualified from running into the elections. And we have a very active Zionist court. And you mentioned before me being a lawyer, I have to say that for many years, in the last 4 elections, I've gone in and out of the Zionist court in different questions that were raised, including questions like the question of, is this slate Zionist enough or not to actually be running within the WZO election?
Thank you. And I'm going to stay with you and ask another question that we've gotten from one of our listeners. Do the slates need to get a certain number or percentage of votes to be part of the Zionist Congress? And is there a limit to the number of slates that can be part of the Congress?
Okay, so there's no limit, but they need to stand to different criteria. And in this case, it's the AZM that does the rules and says that a certain time beforehand, they need to register, they need to show the number of supporters and so on. And at this point, there were 22. I think the last one even came, Herb, through the Zionist court. There was another one that was added at the last moment. But once the election starts, that's it. That's the slate that will be running. Yes, there is a minimum number of votes, but that actually goes according to the number of votes that will generally be voted on. So in this case, as the general number of voters go up, the number of a relevant one representative at the Zionist Congress will also go up accordingly. At this moment, we are expecting, Herb, I think, that in the US, and that's what we're talking about, the elections in the US, we're expecting that there will be between 1,800 and 2,000 people need to vote for a slate in order for it to get at least one representative at the Zionist Congress. There's also a very interesting discussion always about what are the votes who are left over. So there come the different coalitions that are made in order not to lose votes and help support slates with similar agendas.
Thank you, Yaron. And just to let everybody know, I have 2 more basically technical questions that have been posed that I'm going to ask Herb to address. And if nothing else comes in after Herb answers my second question, Joanna, I think we'll be turning it back to you. So Herb, some of the slates give very little information about their positions. Is there a way we can, that people can access more information and learn about what they are looking to support?
So I'm going to come to that in 1 second, and the standard Jewish answer, I'm going to add to what Yaron said before, and then I'll address that. Just to so there is no, unlike Knesset elections where many people may be familiar, where I think you have to get 3.25% to get in. There's no threshold in America. In the last election, there were about 124,000 American Jews who voted. You divide that by 152 delegates. Each seat was about 800 delegates. So if a slate got that many, they got a seat at the Zionist Congress from America. Of the 15 slates that ran last time, 14 of those did. So Depending on the vote total this time, that number may be, significantly higher, as Yaron mentioned, for a slate to get in. The slates and had to agree to support the Jerusalem program. They were examined by, we have an election committee that oversees the election. The Jerusalem program is the platform of the Zionist movement. They have to agree to support the Constitution of the WZO and the American Zionist movement. So there's a vetting process to make sure that the groups that are running are Zionist. Again, they're very diverse in their views on Zionism, but they all have that core commitment to the WZO and the Zionist movement. And each voter, when they vote, has to check a box, and you see the platform there, the Jerusalem program, the Tochnit Yerushalayim, which was the successor of the Basel program of Herzl, amended a little bit over the years, but at its core the same, and you have to sign your commitment to the Zionist movement in order to be a voter. In terms of the slate's views, so I think our colleagues posted the slates at a glance. There's a page on the AZM website that has each slate has a link. There's a slate booklet that has all of them, and you can read them. As in any political campaign, and we're all familiar with that in America, slates have different kinds of rhetoric. Some people give a lot of details and go into all their policy nuances. Some give broad platitudes and statements. That's up to the slates how they want to campaign. Many of them, or most slates, have a website, and there's a link to them on their own page or in the slates at a glance, and you can go to their website and you really want to delve into more of what they believe and a contact information. So if you want to be an informed voter, you can research the slates, you can contact them, you can see more of their positions. Generally, in campaign and marketing, they're stating their broad principles and platform, and the policy details are there for those who want to read them. But the groups take it seriously and are really campaigning and trying to express their views with American Jews.
Thanks, Herb. And the last question, I think, kind of fulfills the promise I said at the opening, which is that we would give you both technical information and broader information about the elections. So this is really technical. Is the separate exit poll to understand how particular communities or synagogues voted? I think it's meant to say, is there a separate exit poll to understand how particular communities or synagogues have voted, or do we only see the general results?
So we don't conduct an exit poll. There is no way, it's not like an American election where there's someone standing outside, 10,000 representative polling stations around the country and doing an exit poll. So we don't have that. Some organizations and some communities have their own ways of gathering data, or some synagogues and groups and slates have their own information where they say, go to a certain website of their slate and click here to show that you voted, and they're collecting their own demographics. That's not connected to AZM or Votum, the company that runs the election. Those are private efforts by some of the slates. Some of the slates are collecting information beforehand on potential voters. But the AZM itself, we will have the overall results. We don't know how anyone voted. We don't know the results now. We don't know who's winning, as it were. We know that there are people who have voted from all 50 states and several U.S. territories, D.C., Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. There's people voting from all over the country. We'll just know the overall results when the voting closes.
If I may, I wanted to add something about that. That's a sort of a red flag to everyone, because we do monitor. We can't receive numbers that reflect a specific congregation, but we do go back to our people around, for instance, the San Francisco area or the Los Angeles area, because we will see how many people voted around an area generally and tell them, wow, you told us that you'll bring 2,000 votes and the entire area brought 300 votes. Something didn't actually work with what you said that you're actually doing. So, and there's another comment that I'd like to make to one of the first, I think, question that I saw in the chat. Friends, I know it's sometimes frustrating, but it's so important. Please do not give up. And those friends of yours that are saying that they've had it with it and it's not working, ask them to try again tomorrow. There's still time until Yom Ha'atzmaut, and actually cast their vote, because at the end of the day, decision will be made by those who did not vote at all.
Yes, and for anyone who has difficulty voting, just to add to that, to jump in, you know, there's a help desk, there's an email which we can put in the chat at azm@votem.com, the election company that will help people. There are agents there that will help in the voting process. You know, everyone's phone or computer is slightly different. People know that from all our online transactions that we make. But again, well over 100,000 people have voted already. If you need it, there's a paper ballot, and there's an 8-week process to vote, almost another 4.5 weeks to go. So people should have the opportunity to do that and participate in one way or the other. Many synagogues or communities have people that are able to help those who, you know, need some assistance with the voting process.
Thank you so much, Herb and Yaron, for all of the information and passion that you've shared about the upcoming and current World Zionist Congress elections. Joanna, back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to our wonderful moderator and panelists, Becky, Yaron, and Herb, for this informative panel, and to all of you for tuning in today for today's briefing. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website by tomorrow for your reference, so please share widely. And we have a call to action. When you close out the webinar today, please take a moment to cast your vote. Inspire 3 friends to do the same, because democracy takes perseverance. Every voice matters, and your participation will truly help shape the future of Israel. And so for more details, we include in the chat, but for those who are viewing this on our website, click azm.org/elections. We are wishing all of you a wonderful rest of your day. And again, thank you so much. Am Yisrael.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
and Pesach Sameach to everyone.
Chag Sameach.